Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another installment in our No Buffs Rift Clear series. Today's video is a little bit different for a couple of different reasons. One is it's a very different style of Rift, and two, I wasn't quite able to get the 3-star clear that was necessary with the character that I had to work with today, mainly revolving around the level that I had them with. But I do hope that this video at least gives you some context and some further ideas. So we will be taking on the Spider-Man solo Rift today. And this one takes place throughout the hand compound. And the thing about the hand compound is there's a lot of variable type opponents that you can face off against. They have melee attacks, they have ranged attacks, they have attacks that explode and deal a lot of area of effect type damage. And I chose to focus on the easier of the two under the given set of circumstances, which is defeating the 45 enemies rather than the 3-minute and 30-second clear. I was trying to get that 3-minute and 30-second clear, and because my Spider-Man is just at so low of a level due to not being used on my team and being relatively low level, there just was not a feasible way for me to complete the time restraint challenge. Now, I may throw a couple of experience cubes into Spider-Man in order to buff him up at least to a decent level for this type of a challenge, but still not upgrade any of his abilities and other things to see if that works a little bit better. But that will likely take place either at the start of next week's episode, or it will just happen off camera entirely. Or maybe I will do a little section at the end of these different Rift types to kind of give you a better idea of the corrections that I needed to make to get those faltering stars. However, basically the biggest thing that you need to keep in mind here is a lot of these enemies, when you are far enough away from them, they will transition to their ranged abilities, whether that's throwing shurikens or the explosives, or they will attack with you with a couple of different melee attack options when you are right up next to them. The other thing that really kind of threw me for a loop for a while is the mighty enemies that are present within the hand warriors. Is if they get down to a certain degree of health, they would rather take themselves out than allow you to finish them off. And I've never had a problem taking them out on my own terms up to this point, but there were a couple of runs that were foiled by that very high damage kamikaze type move that they sometimes pull. However, when it comes to defeating the 45 enemy counter, that does still factor in towards your total rather than theirs, which I am very appreciative of, because there are only 45 enemies across the entire challenge, and it would be quite irritating if you are unable to reach that goal because a couple of the mighty enemies decide that they would rather take themselves out than give you the kill credit. So I do really like that that was included, because otherwise characters or people that don't have a lot of experience playing with tricky characters such as Spider-Man would have a very difficult run in this type of an environment. The biggest strategies that I'm using here is racking up a lot of the damage with Spider-Man's falling aerial. He does not have the ability to damage the stagger gauges with that falling aerial, but it does a decent amount of chip damage, especially against the smaller type enemies. And I find it very beneficial that you can chain that out of a heavy attack that he has with his swing kick. You'll also notice that I am deferring from using any of his web sling abilities and passive movement, because I really need to conserve any of the energy points that I have available for attacks that I can use within combat when necessary. Admittedly, I'm not doing a whole lot with that because I only have one ability active for Spider-Man, which is his signature web shot. And though it can bind up some of the grunt type enemies, it just doesn't do a whole lot in the realm of damage dealing. And I'm sure that if I were to at least get Spider-Man up to level 20 where he has all of his abilities available to him, I would be able to get that time constraint aspect of this particular challenge a lot easier. So between using those falling aerial attacks to rack up damage and build up my energy points and my passive gauge, it's not a super crazy sequence of fights and interactions, but it is still trying, especially having Spider-Man as low as a level as he is, I think he goes up to level 9 at the end of this particular encounter and doesn't retain any other experience that would be gained if you fail a challenge between now and then. The last thing that I really did to help bolster some of my numbers here at the end of the fight is whenever you have your extreme attack, or you can build up that extreme attack, it's going to be in your best interest to attempt to use it with a large group of enemies, and there is a larger second wave that is summoned in after you've taken out a lot of the initial opponents that are present within this fight. And by holding on to that extreme attack until they have shown up, it really allows you to rack up a lot of damage against the opponents that do come in after the fact, especially where most of them do spawn in that middle section. You can also attempt to trigger some of those floor traps to have those spears go flying across and strike into your opponents, as they are vulnerable to those projectiles just as much as you are. But it's not the greatest strategy, so maybe not count on that as a concrete damage dealer, but just understand that it can help you out in a pinch as long as you're not the one who ends up getting caught in that crossfire. You also want to make sure that you try and target the larger opponents anytime possible with those large explosive crates that are scattered throughout the battlefield, but that can prove to be difficult, mainly due to the fact that if you are struck while you are holding that, you will drop it and not only receive damage from the incoming attack, but you will also receive a lot of that explosion damage. But that is going to do it for today's video. Sorry I didn't get that 3rd star, but like I said, I very well might include that as a correction towards the end of this segment of Rifts. But with all that being said, if you made it this far into today's video, make sure that you leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe for that daily variety content, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, everyone.